You're listening to the Huddle Up Podcast with Chad Jensen and Zach Kelberman. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com and sound off. And now it's time to drop some knowledge.
We're live. Welcome in, everybody. We're going to let the stream breathe just for a second. You know how it works here at the Huddle Up Podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle, powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime. You know him, you love him. He is Zach Kelberman. Zach, just as we were about to go live, you brought to my attention a ridiculous tweet by none other than Pro Football Focus. I guess I could pull up the tweet to show our audience, but I'll just read it. Quote, most valuable AFC West players over the last 5 years per PFF's WAR metric, W-A-R metric. Number 1, Phillip Rivers. Number 2, Derek Carr. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes. Number 4, Alex Smith. Number 5, Chris Harris Jr. What world are they living in?
I don't know, but this is becoming the norm for Pro Football Focus, is putting out these obviously Broncos biased takes, these hot clicky takes. Let me ask you a question though. How is Rivers and Derek Carr, 1 and 2, but you leave off the 2016 Super Bowl MVP and Von Miller? How is Chris Harris Jr. on there and not Von Miller? How is Alex Smith on there and not Von Miller? But the thing that chaps my behind with this is Rivers and Carr. How many playoff wins combined can you think of? What is it, 1, 2 off the top of my head the last 5 years? Whereas Von carried that team because the defense carried the Broncos in 2015 all the way to the Super Bowl and took the Panthers down.
Did the Chargers get a win under Rivers? I know they made the playoffs the same year the Broncos won the Super Bowl, 2015.
But if we have to even think about this, though, they shouldn't even be ranked that high. Whereas Von Miller literally had a Hall of Fame type season in 2015, willing the Broncos to a title. And over the last 5 years, he has been the Broncos, and he has been an elite player. It's what are they watching, and why did they fall off so harshly the last couple years?
Yeah, like you said, man, they went from being I think you said this on Monday Night's show, they went from being kind of a thinking man's side and analytics, metrics-based analysis, and now they're more hot take artists, or it's trending that way anyway. And then they hide behind these arbitrary stats like WAR. I don't want to bog down the podcast going into what WAR even means, but it's if your metric is telling you that those were the 5 most valuable players in the AFC West over that time period, obviously, you need to go back to the drawing board. Whatever values you're using to determine that WAR metric are quite flawed. So back to the drawing board, boys.
Yeah, you know what I see? James came in here and said, I wouldn't say it's particularly egregious. It's a quarterback league. WAR is stacked to QB. A lot. PFF love Harris a lot more for some reason. If I understand the quarterback, it goes as the quarterback goes, then make it just a quarterback list. Make the AFC West quarterbacks and don't include non-quarterbacks like Chris Harris Jr. But there's no defensing or justifying having Chris Harris Jr. on there, who is a really good cornerback, a really great slot guy, but not having Von Miller, the Super Bowl MVP, who has been a Hall of Fame caliber player for the last half decade. It's again Pro Football Focus. I don't know what they're watching with the Broncos, but it's the wrong. It's wrong. It's the wrong narrative they're forming about them.
Very bizarre. Very bizarre. Well, gang, tonight we are doing the Mile High Mailbag one night early because unfortunately I will not be with you tomorrow night. We had a death in the family, and very unfortunate on my wife's side of the family, and those services will be occurring tomorrow night. And so I won't be around. So Zach will hold down the fort. It's going to be all good. But we figured let's just move up the Mile High Mailbag by one day and get to your questions, because we are your football priests, and each and every week we're here to provide you the answers to your burning Broncos questions and a little absolution to go along with it as well. And we're going to get to that here in just a minute, guys. We also want to talk about Peyton Manning. We want to talk about in his message to the Broncos rookies, couple other matters of interest to you, as well as Kareem Jackson picking up the word that shall go unnamed, the virus. We're going to get to all that here in just a second. Before we dive in earnest, quick reminder, a couple matters of business. Make sure you're following the podcast on Twitter. We are marching closer. Let me just do a double take here on this. I want to see how much closer we are to 2,000 on the Twitter account. So we still got like 40, 50 followers to go, but we're approaching the 2,000 follower mark. 7,000 of you are listening on YouTube on a weekly basis. There's about 11,000 listening on RSS feed. So migrate some of that over to Twitter, follow the pod, stay plugged into everything we're doing on a daily basis. And while you're at it, you're going to also want to make sure you're following the main account, Mile High Huddle, to ensure you do not miss any breaking Broncos news and analysis as it's unfolding in real time. And then, you guys, if you're in a position, just a gentle reminder to check out the merch store, huddleuppod.com. Get your swag on. Get one of these hats. Get one of these MHH hoodies. Get a Huddle Up Podcast mug. Get a Football Priest t-shirt. Whatever your favorite podcast is under the MHH banner, there's a little merch for you on that site. Aside from MHI, but there will be some MHI stuff on there here very soon. But if you're not in a position to do that, it's all good, gang. Subscribe, these three things. Subscribe, like, share. The Holy Trinity here on the Huddle Up Podcast.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, Zach, before we dive into the mailbag, I wanted to get your thoughts on Peyton Manning, what he had to say or what he did for the Denver Broncos this past week. Of course, he was asked by the coaches to share a message to the 2020 rookie class. And I'll just read this quick quote from Troy Rank's article of Denver 7, and then I want to serve this over to you to get your thoughts. Per multiple sources, this is from Rank, Manning attended a meeting with Broncos rookies recently, surprising the players. They were told beforehand to be prepared to take diligent notes, but the topic was not revealed. Manning discussed several points with the prospects. The one that stuck out the most, treat practice like a game and grind out every day. Manning boasted an attention to detail that became legendary. Everything mattered. I once observed him run goal line audibles with veteran receiver Emmanuel Sanders for half an hour without ever throwing a ball after practice in melting heat. And then he talks about how preparation remains central. So the two things Manning imparted to the rookies is treat every practice like it's a game, and preparation can really win the day.
I just think it's so cool that the Broncos kind of have the dominion on Peyton Manning, where they can call him in to have him give a pep talk through Zoom. He's not doing that for any other organization that we know of. He's not really going back to the Colts and doing stuff like that. You can tell Denver is still very much a part of Peyton Manning. And I give the Broncos credit too, because I'm assuming they set this up to have a legend, to have a guy who had success in their own backyard now in Denver, who has been to the top of the football mountain, and to have him talk to them and impart knowledge that they cannot get anywhere else. And also for them, a non-biased voice. It's not a coach. It's not a former teammate. It's not a family member. It's a guy they really don't know in Peyton Manning, but they can still respect and look up to. And he's giving them some wise advice that can serve them in every single capacity for the rest of their careers.
You know, it's just, especially this time, this particular offseason, the preparation, film study, this is such a unique beast where the players have not had a chance to even join their new coaches, to practice on the field together as a team under the team banner and all that. It puts a premium on doing your homework, right? Taking more seriously the playbook in terms of mastering it as best you can before you're able to get out on the field. Film study. Peyton Manning, he exemplified that, because in that 4-year unprecedented reign in Denver that he had, I mean, his faculties were diminishing the day he signed that contract and became the Broncos quarterback. 4 surgeries on his neck. I mean, he was on borrowed time when it came to his NFL career. And as he was losing his physical wherewithal and his faculties, the one thing that allowed him to maintain for 3 of those 4 seasons MVP caliber quarterback play was the preparation. And I think it was, Zach, it might have been his retirement presser, very choked up, very teary. He said, during his playing career, there were quarterbacks that were physically more gifted than him. but no one was ever going to out-prepare him. And I think just looking at his statistics, just looking at, his accolades and the championships that he won, the value to that preparation and the diligence and to the cerebral aspects of the game and just committing to that, it hopefully spoke volumes to these young rookies who, Peyton Manning is about as close to being the Michael Jordan of the NFL world as there is. So I would assume that it was quite a influential, even though it was virtual, it was another virtual meeting for these young rookies.
In an off season like this, where there, like you said, there's no practices, it's very unique in the sense it's all done virtually. It's all held with video conferences. They can't get on the field just yet. It's throwing them off their natural rhythm and what they've come to expect as in high school, as football players, as college and football players. But what Peyton Manning is saying, the overarching message is stay grinding, stay diligent, stay on top of your task, sharpen your sword, and you'll be okay. Just keep doing that no matter what. Even when times are trying, even when you don't feel like it's natural for you, stay on top of your game, and it will make you a better player. So again, the Broncos rookies and the Broncos as a team are fortunate they have someone they can bring in and someone they can lean on, like Peyton freaking Manning, of all people.
Well said. We've got one of our Super Chat superstars jumping in to show some love. Very
George.
Generous super.
Thank you, George.
Really appreciate you, George. He says, been away for a bit due to work and feeling under the weather. Glad to be back in the saddle. Well, we're glad to have you back in the saddle, George. It's not the same when you're not in the chat stream, bro. So thank you so much for the support, as always, my friend. We really appreciate it. Speaking, Zach, of under the weather, Kareem Jackson is the latest Bronco to test positive for the C word that shall go unnamed on this live podcast. And it kind of, I think, has some fans a little bit freaked out. But what was your gut reaction to the news that he has indeed tested positive? And by the way, it's believed that he picked up the bug not in Colorado and not during the peaceful protest march that Jackson, Von Miller, and other Broncos led at the Colorado State Capitol. It's believed that he actually contracted it beforehand in Texas.
Well, first and foremost, I'm happy personally, physically, medically, he's okay. I mean, it goes beyond football. I'm glad as a person his health is okay. But, you're going to see these cases keep popping up with more testing and more tracing, and it's just with the country opening up more. And even the chief NFL doctor said we expect more cases to happen. Even Roger Goodell said positive cases will happen. So I'm happy that Kareem Jackson's okay, but I'm not surprised that he caught it, that Vaughn caught it, that Ezekiel Elliott caught it. It's something they're going to have to deal with throughout the season if they want to have a semi-traditional kind of year.
Yep, it is what it is. And the NFL right now is working on kind of fail-safes and protocols, figuring out what they're going to do in the event that, it runs through a team, for example. Like, let's say we talked about this, I think it might have been Monday's show, Zach, but let's say the season we're going right now. All right, well, Jackson tests positive. Well, you're going to have to now test, and there will be testing protocols, but there's a good bet that all the guys closest to him in the locker room, you're going to want to test those guys.
Yeah.
In his position room, the guys that are going to ostensibly replace him if he does have to be isolated for 2 weeks, the guys who would step in, well, they're the ones that have been in the same space as him, right? They're the ones that have been touching the same things in the same room, watching the same film as a unit. So these are complicated issues and basically pitfalls that the NFL is figuring out how they're going to overcome them. But at this stage, there's no way to know exactly what that answer is going to be in terms of the NFL. But I think they're just going to roll with the punches and not so much roll the dice, but take it as it comes. And I think if they do a good job, Zach, with testing and when there is a positive, quickly isolating and all that, I think the NFL will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the expectation, like Roger Goodell even admitted that there's going to be cases that pop up, and it's probably going to extend in the fall when many health experts are predicting a second wave of this, Chad. So it might be just they have their own designated injured list for guys who catch this virus, and they're going to have to just deal with it and segregate them and isolate them. They're talking about having the locker rooms 6 feet apart and the lockers and the showers. I don't know how they're going to do it. It's going to be so unique, unlike we've ever seen anything before. And I give Goodell credit, though, for marching on and want to maintain some sort of semblance of normalcy and have a year for the fans and the players.
And man, maybe it turns out to be some kind of a scenario where for 1 year they go back to the drawing board on practice squad and how many people, like you said, an IR list, grow the IR list a little bit in terms of how many people can be put on IR at the same time. If it's the C word related, and maybe increase practice squad numbers and how many people can rotate on and off of the practice squad. Yeah. Like there are ways to get around it. The biggest thing is going to be, of course, the contingency of having enough players available who are competent enough to maintain the quality level of competition in the event that, you do have like a rash of, it is a very contagious bug. So, if it strikes the same position room, if, just as an example, Vaughn gets it and then Chubb gets it. And then, you all of a sudden there's your top two gone. What if Jerry Atachu gets it? Now there's your top three. What do you do? Well, if you've got a couple of guys on the practice squad and the rules are relaxed a little bit or edited in a way that allows for teams to go to the practice squad. And, we already have the temporary going from 53 to 55 on game day, utilizing practice squad players. But maybe you can grow that a little bit in order to handle this situation. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just thinking that the NFL is, I think, taking a wait and see approach, and it's not even July yet. And I think they want to see where the country stands and see where these cases stand when it's time for training camp in late July. And then they'll form what they're going to do for the season around that. Maybe a new injured list, maybe more practice squad, like you mentioned, Chad. I also think they're going to take some of their cues from NBA and MLB. They're going to see how they're operating, how they do, with the NBA being in a bubble in Walt Disney World. I think they want to see what some other leagues are doing to combat active cases while sports are going on, while their sport is going on.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Mike Evans jumping in, one of our superstars, with a generous super. Really appreciate that support, my friend, and it means the world to us. And by the way, Mike, I think we owe you a little thank you. You should send us an email, milehighhuddle@gmail.com, and let us send you out a T-shirt or a hat or something to thank you for, your weekly support of the podcast. It's the least we can do to show our gratitude for your support, my friend. So take care of that when you get a second. But he says, on local sports radio this morning, the host made the statement that Von Miller wouldn't be here in 2021 due to salary. What do you think? Zach, the only way I could see that happening, well, the primary way I could see that happening is if there are no fans in the stands this year because of the word that shall go unnamed. Revenues plummet by almost 50%. The salary cap drops by 40%, and the Broncos come to him and say, Vaughn, we need you to roll with us on this. We need you to, take a pay cut I think that'll be at the final year of his deal. Yeah, 2021 is the final year of his deal. And he says, no, I'm not going to do that. But I don't think that's going to happen, Zach.
No, and I've said this before, and I will keep saying this when it comes to Von Miller. His status with the organization is dependent on 2020. What he does this year, coming off one of the worst years of his career, what he does this season will determine whether the Broncos shell out another fat contract or maybe start thinking of parting ways and having Chubb be the new guy, the new veteran pass rushing elite guy there, and having Vaughn kind of ride off in the sunset. If he goes back to pre-2019 form, which I think he will, the Broncos will want to keep him around. I don't know what it comes down to with the issue, if it impacts the Broncos, when it impacts the Broncos, but you saw it in baseball. They were asking their players to take a prorated salary less than what they're making. I happen to think that even in a worst case scenario, Vaughn is the type of guy who would kind of slash his salary for the sake of the team, for the sake of the league, especially if he has another down year. But it all depends on what he does this season.
I would go, read the article Bob Morris posted at milehighhuddle.com last night on just kind of how a serious drop in revenue for the NFL could affect the Broncos' salary cap in 2021 and potential salary cap type decisions. Go check that out when you guys get some time. And, basically it really boils down to this. If Vaughn bounces back and produces a Vaughn-like season, this isn't even a question unless, again, the salary cap is reduced to such a drastic level that the Broncos literally can't afford to pay Vaughn that money plus all the other players that they're going to need to have in order to field a competent team, and they say come to him, and he isn't willing to play ball. That's the only way, really, at this stage, barring him just having a terrible season, that I wouldn't foresee Vaughn being on the roster in 2021. But we are, as you guys have probably been able to sense since March, we're in a weird year. We're kind of in some uncharted waters right now. Just weird SHIT is happening right now. And so you can't completely rule anything out like that, Zach.
Right. We don't know where anything's going to be tomorrow, let alone in 2021. So, again, I'll maintain what I said about Vaughn. If he has another bounce back year, like Chad said, it's no brainer. He'll be around for 2021 and probably beyond. But if he kind of falls off and shows last year wasn't a fluke, it's a sign of things to come, then I think Denver can start having the conversation of maybe moving on from Vaughn eventually.
Yeah, so David's bringing up this issue. Okay, same issue that Angela's bringing up as well. By the way, thank you, Angela, for the super chat. Very generous of you up in Canada, proving, as always, Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is a hashtag state of being. She says, I've been out of work for a couple of weeks. Glad to make it live again today. It's great to have you. What happens when a quarterback gets the word that shall go unnamed, and then the whole room applies to lots of positions and rooms? Forfeits? That's why, Zach, I think you need to be able to relax some of the comings and goings of the roster in terms of IR rules, practice squad numbers rules. They might have to really just get creative with that, because if a Drew Lock gets it, there's a good chance, well, not just a good chance. If Drew Lock gets it, that would have meant that Jeff Driscoll's been exposed. That would have meant that Brett Rippon's been exposed. And whoever's on the roster, it doesn't really matter who you have on the practice squad, because they've all been in the same room together. Now, that's no guarantee that they're all going to get it, because human beings' immune systems all work differently. And, you know, the rate and the way and the means in which people get exposed is different as well. It's not equal. So it doesn't guarantee that everyone in the room would get it. But in the event that those stars aligned, the teams like the Broncos forfeiting once you're in season, that's just not going to be an option. So That's why they need to have relaxed rules, I think, with the IR and the practice squad this year, to where even if it means signing someone off the street and you're not having to get rid of someone else who's on IR because of the word that shall go unnamed, or whatever special designated injury list you create for the word that shall go unnamed, because it is a 2-week trip. If you come down with it, you have to be isolated for 2 weeks, Zach.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what the NFL is going to do. It opens up so many Pandora's boxes that they didn't even think about exploring until this season, and kind of on the fly and as things have gone along. What my gut tells me about the NFL is that they're really taking a wait and see approach. They want to see where things stand. It's June 17th right now. Training camp is around July 28th for most teams. That's still over a month away. It's 6 weeks away. Things can change. Things can adapt. This has been a fluid situation since March. Every single week we've heard something different. I think the NFL is just waiting to see how baseball does, how basketball does, and then we'll go from there and try to tweak as needed.
Yep. But the NFL is going to move mountains to have the season.
Yeah, it's happening.
Believe that. It's going to happen. And they'll get criticized for it, especially if they do it in the traditional way where teams are traveling across the country to play each other. And they break with the way the NBA is doing it, where the teams basically stay in one location the entire time. The NFL is going to do it their way. They'll get criticized for it, but just like they were criticized in March for holding free agency, and just like they were criticized for holding the draft, they'll do it. And then in retrospect, people will credit them for, making it happen. Because, guys, I don't know if you've turned on your TV lately. America needs sports back, and America needs the NFL back. So,
yeah,
honestly, it would be a service to the country. It would be a service to humanity to have the game back. So let's grab Derek jumping in with a $5 super. Really appreciate you, my friend. He says, great to see you guys. Keep the content going. We will. That Absolutely. We shall do, Derek.
Always.
That we shall do. Charlie, what are you talking about? Charlie wants to know on YouTube, what are they doing with the stadium? Oh, you're responding to somebody else. I think I saw that earlier. Hold up. Let me grab it. Mile High Beauty. Did you guys see what the Broncos are doing with the stadium? Outside of the new partnerships they struck with FanDuel and what's the other one? I can't remember the name of this other one. Hold on. Betfred USA. I'm not sure what you're speaking of there about the stadium, but feel free to elucidate on that.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
2 sleepers from Vinny J. 2 sleeper stars to emerge in 2020. Tim Patrick and Draymond Jones. Thoughts? Do you see 81? That's Tim Patrick, right? Yeah, 81. Yeah. Wait, is it? Yeah, it is. And Draymond Jones, what do you think on that?
Draymond Jones is a bigger sleeper to me than Tim Patrick because Draymond Jones has a clearer path to playing time, whereas Tim Patrick is buried behind Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton, and it might even be, Deshaun Hamilton. So he has a long road to hoe before he gets on the field, whereas Draymond Jones, he's the logical successor to Shelby Harris. He's probably going to take over eventually when Jarrell Casey's out of the picture. He's the next guy, and I think he's a bigger sleeper player on the defensive line just by the basis alone of having more snaps than Tim Patrick will. Significant, meaningful snaps.
Yeah, and he also has the upside, not just the opportunity in terms of the exposure to the game, like, actual game snaps like Zach's alluding to, but Draymond Jones has the potential to be a very productive pass rusher from the inside. He needs to also focus on the other aspects of his game in order to stay on the field, becoming a good run-supporting defensive end, run-stuffing defensive end, but definitely of those two, I would pick Draymond as more of the more feasible, realistic potential sleepers. Patrick, there's a good chance Patrick doesn't even make this roster. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's not a bold prediction. But look, he's got an uphill climb, man. It's a stacked position for the Denver Broncos right now, wide receiver. Let's count the ways. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Deshaun Hamilton. What do those 4 guys have in common? They're all recent John Elway draft picks. Then you get Tim Patrick at number 5. Then you get a couple more former John Elway draft picks in Juwan Winfrey, a 6th-rounder from 2019, and Tyree Cleveland, a 2020 7th-round pick. Then you got a guy like Fred Brown who found a way inexplicably to make this roster last year, Zach, and see snaps during the regular season. And then you got Deontay Spencer, who made the roster and had a Pro Bowl alternate caliber season as a returner. So that's what I mean by Tim Patrick. Like, it could have the type of effect, Zach, where, he takes it as a shot across the bow and it motivates him and he rises up. But I think we've already seen kind of the peak of what you're ever going to see from Tim Patrick, at least in the orange and blue. And I don't say that to sell him short. Utes is my alma mater. I root for the Utes when they get to the NFL, no matter where they go, okay? But I think Tim Patrick, his best case scenario this year, Zach, is Cortland Sutton's backup at the X receiver.
Yeah, it's perfectly said. And I was going to say, adding on to that point, Draymond Jones is a better pass rusher than Tim Patrick is a wide receiver. They're apples and oranges, but one has way higher of a ceiling, way higher of an upside, and one is kind of limited. And I think, like you said, he's a great number 4 guy to have, but I think he'll always be just that. In a truly best case scenario, a number 3 guy. But number 4, that's where his ceiling kind of lies. Whereas Draymond Jones, he has starting caliber potential.
All right. Before we get to Jeff's question here, and let me pull up Philip Lindsay's Twitter because this did catch my attention. Jeff and I had a brief exchange. I don't think you – whoa, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Here's what Philip Lindsay said on Twitter that Jeff is talking about, then we'll grab Jeff's actual – okay, so this came in on June 16th. So this was yesterday. Philip Lindsay, Denver Broncos Pro Bowl running back, said, quote, "I'll tell you this, things always look sweet on paper." Then he has the hashtag "we gonna see." So we've got
I like this, Lindsay.
I said on Twitter yesterday, Zach, that I have my suspicions about what it might mean. Jeff's wondering here, and thank you for the super, Jeff. He says, sorry if you touched on this. What do you think Lindsay meant by looks good on paper, we going to see? Zach, why don't you start us off on this one?
I mean, you can easily read between the lines and assume he's talking about Melvin Gordon, the guy who took his job and the guy he's competing against now, but maybe he's talking about the Broncos overall. Maybe he's talking about a different team. I mean, this is a subtweet to end all subtweets, and this is so unlike Philip Lindsay. So based on that and everything he said this offseason, Chad, you can tell he is really pissed off about the Melvin Gordon signing. He'll never admit it. He'll never publicly come out and say that, but it really did ruffle his feathers. And again, rightly so. I mean, he feels like he's done enough. He's not getting a contract, but they can give an outside guy $16 million. I happen to think it's a little bit of a subtweet toward his new teammate, but it could be something else.
It could be, and it could be our own confirmation bias and our own feelings on the issue. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't admit that was my first inclination as well. And look, Philip Lindsay reads the articles. I mean, just what was it, yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. I did a quick little video hit with the guys at SI, Sports Illustrated corporate in New York, and they wanted to talk about the Broncos basically offensively, their fantasy outlook this year, and could they be the next great fantasy offense? And the guy that his name is Sean Childs, very knowledgeable fantasy analyst, okay? Not an X's and O's guru. That's not his thing. He's a fantasy guy. He's won over $500,000 playing fantasy football in his career as a fantasy football guy. You know, they consider him like a savant when it comes to numbers and projections. He created his own projections for the Denver Broncos offense, and he's done it. He does it every year for every single team. He's got Melvin Gordon being the bell cow, 900 yards rushing. He's not the only one on the national level that's looking at this situation and simply following the money. They're going, look, $16 million, 13.5 guaranteed. Obviously, the Broncos made a decision to add Melvin Gordon to a situation that must mean that they're gonna play him. He's gonna play. But again, for those of you, I'm talking to the national people. It's one thing from 10,000 feet to be able to look at this situation and go, oh, we'll follow the money. It's Melvin Gordon, also a former first-round pick, also a two-time Pro Bowler. That's really easy to do. But those of us that are covering this local situation on the day-to-day, we see what Philip Lindsay is made of. Those scales have already been pulled off our eyes. It's unquestionable. No running back ever that has crossed paths with Philip Lindsay has been able to keep him off the field as the dude. Is Melvin Gordon suddenly that one running back that's going to be? I mean, the Broncos tried to strong-arm the offense with Royce Freeman. Remember the third-round pick in 2018? He was supposed to be the guy. Lindsay didn't let that happen, just like he's not going to let it happen with Gordon.
Perfectly said. Yeah, he's really come out and really changed his ways. He went from being kind of a meek, passive, great teammate, great guy, but he wasn't one to rabble-rouse. Whereas this offseason, following the addition of Melvin Gordon, he's come out and said it bothered him. I saw a comment that said he already said he was pissed about it. No, he expressed disappointment. He expressed a little bit of anger, but he didn't trash the signing like what that tweet implies like he's doing, Chad. And he's been out there also with Drew Lock in those pass-catching drills, out in the park with Lock, out in the park with his teammates, and guess who's not there? Melvin Gordon. So he's looking at that and he's thinking to himself, okay, he's not there. I'm here. I'm doing my thing. I know what I'm capable of. I have motivation. I'm pissed about it. And we wouldn't have seen this Lindsay tweet a year ago. He wouldn't have tweeted about this, about Devontae Booker this way, Royce Freeman this way. This is all a Melvin Gordon-led tweet. And I love it. I love the new Philip Lindsay.
That's just how we see it. We share a brain on that. And again, you know, the Broncos might try to the Broncos will try to strong arm this one way or another because they want to return on that investment, right? I mean, $8 million per year. And it's not like Melvin Gordon. It was a, scraping the bottom of the barrel clearance sale situation where he's stuck around on the market for a couple of 2-3 weeks. And they're like, well, hey, he's still out there. Let's offer him a pittance. And then, he can come in and make, no, dude, this was a guy that they paid top of the market type money to bring him in. They want to see him on the field. They're going to try and make that happen. Will Lindsay let that happen? That's where we're saying we don't think that's the way it's going to shake out. It's going to be fun to see, though, how I want to grab Clay real quick, Buana, or else I'm going to forget. I don't want to ignore the Facebook peeps. Clay says, sorry for your loss, Chad. Thank you. I don't get why Drew is so hard to sack like Deshaun Watson is sacked more, and we both had about the same offensive line. And Deshaun is quite a bit faster. Can you explain it? I think one of the explanations for that, Zach, is First of all,
he's played more games. That's one.
Who, Watson?
Yeah, he played a full season, whereas Locke played 5 games, so obviously he's going to be sacked more.
That's true. But I think part of it is that Locke's decision-making was a lot quicker and more on point than people realized. And I also think it means that his offensive line wasn't anywhere near the S show that Joe Flacco made them look like the first half of the season.
Yeah, and I was going to say also, Deshaun Watson's offensive line was downright freaking terrible at times. I mean, they gave him no chance. He would drop back in a 3-step drop and just be mauled instantaneously. Drew Lock, he raised all ships around him, to quote you, Chad. He made even Garrett Bowles look semi-competent. That's a huge feat. He's mobile. He just brought more energy to the team, whereas as you felt with the Texans last year, there was so much acrimony with Bill O'Brien, the way the offense played out. But at times, I disagree. The Houston offensive line was horrendous.
Yeah. All right, boy. Sorry to step on you there, my friend. Here's Christian showing some love on Super Chat, one of our superstars.
Thank you,
Good to
Christian.
see you back in the stream, bro. He says, sorry, I've missed the last few pods. Been busy with my lifeguard training. Oh, cool.
Awesome.
Cool, man. That was a job that I know as a kid. When I was a child, that was one of my dream jobs. I wanted to be a lifeguard. I thought they were the coolest. Start my course this weekend. Well, congrats. Again, excited for the season. Yeah, we're all chomping at the bit to get this season here as quickly as possible, but we're still a solid 6 weeks out. But as disheartening as that might seem on the surface, just think about this. I mean, the beginning of May was 6 weeks ago, and that was 2 weeks after the draft. Well, week after the draft, sorry. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but that's how quickly time can fly.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what, Christian, and congratulations on that and good luck with that. Let us know how you're doing as you advance through that course and through your lifeguard career. It's awesome.
Oh, no, here he is in the house, Mark Langley, bona fide superstar. We have, in fact, Mark and I right now, we are wearing the exact same outfit in his profile pic.
Twinning.
The football priest hat, the Mile High Huddle State of Being hoodie. We're like stepbrothers. He says, well, Zach, when the septic guy was here, I asked his name. He said, Garrett Flusher. I said, no joke. Well, I said, you can't flush a turd without a toilet.
Every time.
Hashtag football priest. Hashtag MHH. Hashtag used toilet bowls, bringing the funny as he is wont to do. Thank you, Mark. You know we love you.
We love you. Yeah, you're the best, Mark. Thank you.
We love potty humor because we are 14 years old in spirit. David, bona fide superstar. Appreciate you, my friend. As always, so generous on Super. He says, Mile High, salute to you both. Sorry for your loss, Chad. Prayers to your family. I really do appreciate that. David, it's always a tough situation. It wasn't something that was completely unexpected because my wife's grandmother was battling an illness, but it doesn't make it any easier when the time finally comes. So tough moment. Everyone, at some point or another, you have to go through these type of things, and makes you appreciate who you got, love the people in your family, appreciate the time you get to spend with them, especially your grandparents and stuff like that, because life is extremely fragile, and it happens and goes by really, really shockingly, frighteningly quickly. But thank you, David. Appreciate you, bro. All right, let's see what else we got here from KP showing out on Super Chat. Really appreciate that, Kevin. He says, thoughts and prayers to you and your wife's family, brother. You're in my prayers, bro. Appreciate that, KP. Really do. Very sweet of you and David and all. I've seen a lot of the comments here in the stream. Ryan's saying here, Chad, you're going robot.
Uh-oh.
If I'm breaking up a little, it's because I'm in a motel right now because I'm traveling for what's going on. So if it's not perfect internet, we apologize, guys, but we are rolling with the punches here. Nick, our friend Pickle Nick, is on Twitter, and he wants to know, hey, fellas, thanks for the content while at work. I'm looking for a lot of improvement in Devontae Bosby. What do you think? Zach, it is my theory that when Vic Fangio mentioned that he's got his eye on two of these young corners that he expects to take a big step forward in 2020, I think Bosby is one of the two that he was thinking of.
Yeah.
I think the other one, if push came to shove, I'd probably say I think the other one that he's thinking of is Isaac Yiadom, but I'm really high on Bosby, dude. Bosby was, before he had that neck injury, dude, he came in week 3, finally supplanted. They benched Isaac Yiadom, and he came in and broke up 2 Aaron Rodgers passes on 3rd down. Did it twice. And played really well on the Jacksonville game as well. Then he gets to LA and suffers that injury relatively early in the game, and the rest is history. So I think because of he's spent 3 years soaking up the scheme at different points of Vic Fangio. So long as he stays healthy, I think Bosby's a guy that, it's going to be a battle between him and Michael Ojemudia for that number 2 outside the boundary slot, I think, Zach.
You know what? What's impressive about Bosby as well is he came straight from the AAF. He had no break in between seasons. He comes to Denver. He really starts in a Vic Fangio defense. He was a starting, really high caliber player last year in this Fangio, Ed Donatel pass defense. So I like him a lot, and I think he will start this season on the boundary opposite Boye with Bryce Callahan in the slot.
Real quick, we get this question every once in a blue moon. From Newton York on Facebook, wants to know, how do I donate? Just on Facebook Live. To our great audience on Facebook and Periscope. Twitch, I still don't even understand how it works. We got great listeners like Black Knight that tries to help me understand it. But as far as Facebook, here's the bottom line. If you want to become a Super Chat superstar, we're never going to ask you to donate money. If you choose to do that, we obviously do appreciate it, all of our superstars, but it has to be done you can only do it while you're watching the show live on YouTube. So you have to cruise over to YouTube, open it up, search Mile High Huddle, subscribe, find the chat stream. It's every weeknight at 6 p.m. basically local time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's the only way you do it. It's pretty easy, actually. All right, what do we got next, Buana? Oh, do that again. My bad. Well, let's grab Christy. No, we'll grab JJ. We'll get to Christy 1 second. All right. Really, haven't seen you for a while, Jordan. It's good to see you, my friend. Generous as always when you're in the stream. Really appreciate it. Rocking the MHH hat. Actually, Jordan is wearing an extremely rare MHH hat. There are only a few of them made, and we gave them out to our awesome listeners who won the Apple Podcast giveaways over the last calendar year. JJ was one of them. Appreciate you, Jordan. He says, I've been busy with work, but always listen to the show. Glad to be back in the huddle. We're glad to see you. We're glad to see you, my friend. As Lance said, missed you. Stu, from on high, condescending down through the clouds from MHH Mount Rushmore. Appreciate you. As always, Stu, so generous, so outgoing. Yeah. I forgot to send you our information so that you could, for the airplane thing, we'll fix that as soon as possible. Just bear with me. We'll get you some info. Kind of been a little bit of a whirlwind at Clan Jensen House the last week or so, so just bear with us on that.
Yeah, thank you, though, Stu. You're always so generous, and we appreciate you.
Mark jumping back in with another generous super. Appreciate you, bro. He said, breaking news. Garrett addressed the Denver media saying that I'm a complete failure and I'm trying my damnedest to get there. Reporter replied back and said, Garrett, you have 72 flushes.
Oh, man. Now we're playing off Jay-Z. Mark, you earn my respect even more, man. Love you.
How do you come up with these things, Mark? All right, Terry, appreciate the super chat. As always, my friend, up in Canada. And by the way, I just realized, Terry, Sunday night you had the question about Pat Shurmur's one-on-one on Broncos TV, and we said we would get to that first thing Monday, and then we spaced it. I have since gone back, and we can now talk about that with some authority here. But Terry says, just showing some love. T's and P's, Chad. Hashtag state of being. Hashtag Broncos. T's and P's?
Thoughts and prayers.
Oh, thoughts and prayers. Thank you. All right. So speaking of Terry here, because this goes back to something he asked us on Sunday. Though, let me tell you the one thing that jumped out to me, that whole conversation that Shurmur had with, what's her name? I just forgot her name. Alexis Perry. The only thing there's only one thing that really jumped out to me is substantive, and that is this quote. Zach, here's what he said. Speaking about Drew Lock, quote, Drew is into it. Drew has a lot of enthusiasm, and I can see why the players are going to relate to him extremely well as we move forward. I think he's got good football sense. He understands concepts. So when you talk about it, even though you're not watching him do it, you can watch the film and say, what would you do here based on this look? What is this look? Is it corner cushion, safety rotation, linebacker location? All the things that you need to see and talk about, he can talk about with great comfort. So that's the starting point, close quote. So what jumped out to me is he can see Shurmur just in his virtual and phone calls and the virtual meetings he has with Locke. He can understand his magnetism and why players are drawn to him, but it goes beyond just being the joy boy, Brett Favre-esque, love of the game, just out there on the grass having a blast. He also has a very serious football mind, and as Shurmur said, Drew Lock has got good football sense.
I think that was the biggest concern for most Broncos fans and most outside media and most outside fans was, okay, Drew Lock has the charisma. He can rap on the sideline. He has the arm talent. He has the mobility, but is he a student of the game? Does he want to be great and not just good? Is he committed? Is football what he lives and breathes and eats and drinks? And I think he proved that this offseason, doing everything in his power, Chad, to take hold of the starting job, whether it's seeking advice from Peyton Manning, whether it's getting his receivers together, whether it's staying in his playbook, staying in the Zoom meetings. You've seen everything, every franchise caliber trait that Drew Lock can exhibit. So I agree with Shurmur. It takes more than just physical talent. The game is a lot mental, but I think Lock is showing he has that ability.
And that's why he took such a quantum leap forward between the version of Locke that we saw on the field in Game 3 of the preseason to even the version of him in Week 13 against the Chargers. It's because of what he possesses between the ears. It's because of those intangibles. And it's not just the leadership. It's not just the charisma and that magnetism that he has that other players are drawn to and can get behind. It's his drive to succeed. It's his football IQ. It's how seriously he takes his task. And that's why I think it's safe for fans to be excited. I think this is a guy that, because he has those rare intangibles that are on the same level as his physical gifts, it's going to be something the Broncos can rely on for a while to come. Let's grab Gary Palmer, 719, jumping in, bona fide superstar. You have
Thank you, Gary.
I think, Gary. He says, Denver Broncos for life, hashtag state of being from Yuma. Yuma. That's actually where my grandparents used to winter. They were snowbirds that would go down to Yuma, spend half the year in Yuma and half the year up in the Rockies. So that's cool. Gets the ball out faster, talking about, I'm sure, Drew Lock's ability to avoid the sack.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it. That's what I mean, Zach. And by the way, again, thank you, Gary. That's what I mean by, I think that his offensive line wasn't anywhere near as bad as they looked trying to block for a half-dead Joe Flacco. But also the fact that he was surprisingly getting the ball out pretty quick. He was making his reads and getting the ball out quick, and that takes pressure off the O-line, and it makes it hard for the rush to get to him.
He has a pretty quick release, and I think that goes by and over a lot of fans' heads. And also, it was a fault last year, but he would throw off his back foot a lot. So one way to evade pressure is just keep rolling back and keep drifting back and then get rid of the ball. It worked in his favor a lot, but it's not something he can rely on and sustain in the NFL. But yeah, I think he elevates everyone around him, and I think that's the reason why he didn't take so many sacks last season.
Brian jumping in to say, Boathouse put out another video, best duo tight ends. Denver was a sleeper with Noah Fant and Albert Okwuegbunam. I've pretty much got the okay. If I think about it, then I botch it. If I don't think about it, I've got it. Let's see. Albert Okwuegbunam. I had it right the first time. Dang it, dude. I jinxed myself. All right, Brian. Definitely a sleeper. I could see how I could be considered a sleeper. But Albert O, I think he's got a lot of competing to do before he even is able to get on the field with Noah Fant. And that's assuming Pat Shurmur slaps together some 12 or 22 personnel looks that allows two tight ends to be on the field at the same time. But nevertheless, I think that's a future consideration for sure, Zach. The Broncos having Fant and Albert O. I just don't think it's going to be as big of a of a storyline as some fans are making it out to be in 2020. Yes, they're both fast for tight ends, 6'5", 4'5" for Fant, 6'5", 4'9" for Alberto.
Yeah, this is a headline we would see at probably 2021 and beyond. They can be a sleeper duo, but Alberto is one of the guys in this draft class who's not going to be handed anything. He doesn't have a sure path to playing time. A lot of guys in front of him, they don't really utilize tight ends in this offense a lot, and Fant is a former first-round pick. He has a long way to go before he has relevancy with the Broncos in the future. Yeah, 2021 and beyond, but 2020, he's going to be an off-use guy. I don't think he's going to make the contribution that a lot of Denver fans think from Alberto this year.
The queen of MHH weighing in with a very generous super chat, showing us the love. We appreciate you. As you know, Christy, she says, much love, guys. Love and prayers to you and your fam. We appreciate that. Thanks, Christy. As always, it means the world to us, and you know that. And as Stu is reminding everybody, hit the like button. It's especially crucial on YouTube, but it's just as important on Facebook. It really is. So, to our audience on both platforms, take care of that. We appreciate it. All right, let's get to Mark jumping back in. Appreciate that, bro. He says, Chad, my thoughts go to you and your family. Really do appreciate that. Yeah, it's just the tudes of life, Zach. Sometimes we got to roll with the punches, and, it's you hate it. You hate when these moments happen, but you just got to support each other and get through it. What can you say?
What you were saying earlier kind of resonated with me when you were talking about life goes by fast and so many things happen. You kind of have to just adjust to it and roll with it. And that's one thing, not to bog down the pod, but that's one thing I learned as an adult. That's a tough lesson in life, is that it's short, it's precious, it can change at a moment's notice, and you just kind of have to just pick up the pieces and move on. So it's an unfortunate fact and truth of life.
Amen. Well said, brother. All right, let's see what else we got. We're sitting at 51 minutes, so we got a good little chunk of time left to go here. Let's grab Kenneth Booker. He says on YouTube, they talked about the Broncos on the Pat McAfee show with Mark Schlereth. Pat and the crew talked about Jerry Jeudy, Drew Lock, and all the young talent. Schlereth told Bronco fans, pump the brakes. Well, that's just kind of Schlereth. He's very – he and Nick Kendall, for example, I think are very similar type of thinkers in terms of – it's not negative per se. It's not glass half empty. It's skeptic. It's prove it to me. I will believe after you show it to me. I'll believe it when I see it. And with Drew Lock, because it's 5 games, and even today I kind of had to eviscerate Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated, one of our colleagues from the mothership, because let me put it this way. I was on a call with editors and from the mothership, and they said, look, we got a Connor Orr article coming out here that it would be great if the team sites could get something going. He's going to go through, Zach, and he's going to reveal each team's biggest remaining roster weakness. So if you guys want to run with that and kind of build a story around what your thoughts are, it'd be great. So eventually today I go find this article and I read what he put. In fact, I got to get your thoughts on this, Zach, because I got to know whether or not I should be feeling guilty about kind of having to rip him up. Here's what he said.
I'm always in favor of doing that. So,
quote, this is supposed to be the Broncos' biggest remaining need. Quote, wide receiver. Until we know, we don't know. The investment in Jerry Jeudy, the 15th overall pick, was massive and warranted. But remember, that wideout is one of the hardest positions in which to transfer directly to the NFL. An Odell Beckham-like season his rookie year changes the calculus significantly. Anything else still leaves this a unit that needs time to grow with the quarterback we don't know much about, close quote. So, Zach, to me, this is simply a dude being lazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. If this would have come out in December of 2019, I'd be nodding my head and said, absolutely, wide receiver is a weakness. They got to do something about it. They did do something about it. Not only Jerry Jeudy, who I would say half the teams in the league had rated as their number 1 wide receiver, including the Denver Broncos. But the Broncos then took KJ Hamler in the 2nd round. So 2 of the best skill position players in the entire class, the Broncos draft with back-to-back rounds. Then they decide to triple dip on wide receiver, and they grab Tyree Cleveland in the 7th round. in what world does that leave wide receiver in need? Zach, and I can understand you can say, well, until you see it out on the grass, it remains a weakness. I disagree with that. I think we have enough of a sample size of Jerry Jeudy and what he did at Alabama to be able to kind of safely predict that even if he doesn't have, Zach, a 100 catch / 1,000 yard receiving season as a rookie, he doesn't need to. Cortland Sutton's going to be doing his thing, demanding attention from coordinators and defenses. Judy's going to eat. This is not a weakness. To me, this is a guy that is basically quickly trying to get through an assignment and just kind of goes, let's see, what do I know about the Broncos? Oh, they had nothing behind Sutton, and I know they drafted Jeudy. Yeah, wide receiver. His rationale does not hold water when you realize that the Broncos did nothing to bolster the offensive tackle depth and that A.J. Bouye is the only relatively proven corner on this roster.
And what an ambiguously weak statement that is to say about the Broncos. They're not proven. You can say that about literally every rookie coming into the NFL this season. It's just a blanket statement that you make when you have, like you said, Chad, nothing else to go on. There's no way you can look at this Broncos receiving core and unprove it or not. You're getting two of the best receivers in this draft class in a historically deep draft class as well, and you're pairing them with Cortland Sutton. And like you said earlier, like I've been saying all along, this is a national media type who does not follow the Broncos on a day-to-day basis. This is a national media type who does not know that Elijah Wilkinson with his bum lower leg is the only backup guy behind Garrett Bowles and Juwan James. If he knew that, he would say tackle is the biggest weakness. This is a guy who doesn't know that, like you said, A.J. Bouye is the only veteran cornerback in a Chris Harris-less cornerback core. If he knew that, he would say one of those two positions, but they don't know. It's a cursory statement, it's an ambiguous statement, and it's a lazy analysis from a guy who doesn't know any better. You know better, you do better, and Connor Orr has to know better before he can do better.
All right. I'm not crazy after all. Greg's dying to know. Zach, where's the hat, dog?
It's right there, right behind me on the shelf. Got the haircut, though.
Over his right?
Over my right shoulder. You can see it.
He just wants to flex that new haircut that he got. That's all. He wants.
You know what?
Looking sharp.
Let me just vent for a second, real quick. I wanted to put this on Twitter, but I thought better of it. It's been the first time in 4 months I got a haircut. I had to get a haircut with a mask on, and let me just say, I've been a rule follower throughout all this. I really, really have. But sitting there when they're cutting your hair and the straps are hanging over and they're getting in the way, and then I had to unhook the strap and hold it up to my mouth and turn to my side. It's a little excessive. It was like, come on, man. What are we really doing here? So I'm happy I got my haircut, but it came at the cost of being very, very, very bothered by that one aspect.
Ron Dubb, one of our Super Chat superstars, chiming in. Really appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, Ron.
He says, hey, guys, besides offensive tackle, what is the biggest weakness on the team? Okay. Honestly, it sure as hell. Let me tell you what it ain't. Wide receiver. Okay. I would probably say cornerback, Zach. If we're removing OT, what would you say?
I mean, you could say cornerback or maybe safety when you don't have a third safety behind Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons. But yeah, I mean, tackle to me is the biggest one. But yeah, cornerback, like we mentioned, Chad, you have Bouye. He's fairly proven. Bosby is still unproven. Duke Dawson's pretty unproven. The rookie's unproven. It's just a lot of question marks in that secondary right now and not a lot of answers.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Lance wants to know, can you two explain the boost that the upgrades to the offensive line can provide to the tackles, please? Providing a vertical escape route, for example. Well, I mean, yeah, for what's for any quarterback, but especially young quarterbacks, what is the kryptonite? It's interior pressure. And what does that do when a quarterback gets pressured from the inside? It forces him most of the time to break the pocket to the outside. And what happens then? Guys like Von Miller swallow them up, take them to the ground. It's a sack. When you are able to add a guy like Graham Glasgow, who was one of the better interior players in the entire league last year as your right guard, and then you get a super smart, very talented young Lloyd Cushenberry to come in. Pat Shurmur wasn't quite ready, Zach, to anoint him the starter. I mean, hasn't even gotten hands on these players yet.
Yeah.
So he's not going to conference anoint any rookie a starter. But still, I think it's a pretty safe bet to wager that Lloyd Cushenberry ends up as the Broncos starting center. And then you got Dalton Reisner, left guard, that trio of players is the best friend for a quarterback like Drew Lock, because the tackles, they just got to run the guy around the turnstile basically, and Lock can step up when he's feeling the pressure from the edge. He steps up, he makes his throw, problem solved.
I will also say, to add on to your point, that the last year you had Dalton Reisner, a rookie. As good as he was still a rookie. And then you had Ron O'Leary, who was turned out to be very injury prone and unreliable. Those were the boons for Juwan James and Garrett Bowles at tackle. This year you upgraded with Glasgow. You have Reisner, who has a year under his belt. He's going to be probably a perennial Pro Bowl player. And then Cushenberry, if he hits his ceiling, if he hits his potential, he is an upgrade on Connor McGovern. So from the inside out, the offensive line will be better, and it will make, I believe, and the hopeful belief is it will make the tackles a better players, and then it will make the whole offense and protecting Drew Lock better as a whole.
By the way, Leroy, it's good to see you. I still haven't gotten that selfie, dude. When are you going to send me the selfie? You bought some swag, and you're like, yeah, dude, I'm going to get that to you. I still haven't seen it, bro. Brian wants to know your guys' thoughts on why Peyton is connected more to Denver than the team that traded him and he spent most of his career with. So Peyton spent 14 years with the Indianapolis Colts, who made him the number 1 overall pick in the 1998 draft. Why does he seem to be more connected to Denver post-playing career than he is Indy? I'm not sure that he really is more connected, but if he is, Zach, because he has done a lot of appearances and things with the Colts as well. But if he is, it might have a little something to do with the fact that he maintains his primary residence in Denver, and the fact that you've got the recency bias aspect of it in terms of, that's where he achieved some pretty great things with the Broncos. Basically, what he accomplished in 14 years in Indy, he accomplished in 4 in Denver.
Yeah, he went off winning a title. He went off and rode into the sunset as a Super Bowl champion. So that's why I think, like you said, recency bias, that's what's freshest in his mind. And also, you consider how many Colts fans became Broncos fans when Peyton signed in Denver. So I think he realizes he has a bigger fan base. It's more of a bigger market team as well. He's all about marketing himself, as we've seen, and I think Denver allows him that opportunity. And also, he wasn't competing with not competing, but kind of being compared to another Hall of Fame quarterback in Indianapolis as he was in Denver with John Elway. His legacy is cemented here, and I just think it leaves a bigger impression on him going into his retirement.
I think there's also something to be said. This isn't me trying to, create a boogeyman or something out of nothing, but Peyton Manning's a guy who takes things very seriously. And I think the fact that the Colts cut him, still smarts, still burns, still bothers him. Now, when he gets the phone call, hey, we're doing a, Super Bowl, whatever that one was, 06 when they beat the Bears when he got his first ring. We're doing a reunion. We want to celebrate at halftime, that team, blah, blah, blah. Can you come out? He's going to come out. He's going to show up for those things. But I still think that he probably holds on to that a little bit in terms of Jim Irsay making that final decision to move on from him following that 2011 season. So I don't know. Well, I don't want to play armchair psychologist for one of the all-time greats like Peyton Manning, but it wouldn't surprise me if that might have a little something to do with it. Let's grab KP here's a $5 super. Thanks, my friend. He says, the number one reason why I watch the show is because y'all do your homework. I don't understand how these other dudes just pull things out of the air with no basis or facts. Well, it's very kind of you to say, The thing is, you got to remember, for us, we live and breathe this all day long. This is what we do, and you can say that about a lot of, radio guys or, other beat people, guys that are working and gals that are working beat or whatever. But radio guys in particular, though, they work their 3 hours and then they just do a lot of guys that I know. It's not an around-the-clock thing. Guys like Zach and I, because we came up in the digital space, we came up in the digital side of this business, we embraced a long time ago the 24/7 nature of what this job demands. If you want to be the best, if you want to beat the competition, if you want to be number one, if you want to get there first, you really have to embrace the 24/7 aspect of this, Zach. And we did that. We came to terms with that a long time ago. Yeah. We don't miss anything. I mean, it's very rare. And if we do miss something, Stephen Baumgartner found it and he showed us on Twitter.
Yeah, that's true. And also, Chad and I's salaries aren't contingent on hot takes. We're not contingent on ratings or, clickbait or anything like that. We give you straight analysis, straight facts. We don't have to rely on trying to deceive our audience and try to take a cursory, weak, ambiguous blanket statement and apply it to the Broncos. We know what we're talking about. And you can't fault some of these national types. They just don't follow the Broncos like we do. But when you have Nick Wright, who pretends to be a national expert and predicts 3-13, you just see how little the blue check marks know and how the outside media views Denver. And it's laughable. But again, hashtag let him hate.
And Jody brings up here, hey, radio guys write articles. Some of them do. Like Cecil Lammy, who's awesome, friend of mine. I love Cecil. He is a guy who I have nothing. He's in fact probably my favorite radio personality because he knows football. What is it, 15, 16 years now? He's gone to the Shrine Game, the Senior Bowl, and the Combine. He's hit the trifecta 14, 15 years. Might even be longer than that. But guys like Cecil, I tip my cap to him. Nothing but the best. He is class of the industry, in my opinion. And by the way, shout out here to D-Dub, who is showing
incredible
his generosity, and it just blows us away. We really appreciate you, my friend. I was just checking, just so you know, Dale, I was just checking with our merch provider to see where your face masks are. It just shows that they are in process of being fulfilled. So hopefully those will hit the road and get to you very, very soon. But you got 4 of them coming your way. Hopefully you saw that in the email that we shared. But he says, just a shout out to the gang. Cheers, beers, laughter, and tears. Great day to be a Bronco fan. Broncos players, especially quarterbacks and receivers, are so blessed that Peyton has the pass-it-on gene. Building the Broncos. Great job. Yep, that's right. He is building the Broncos. He has taken an interest. And again, Dale, thank you so much, bro. Really appreciate you. It means the world to us, and you know that. But he really has, when it was Case Keenum, he made an appearance or two in training camp. He made an appearance or two with Trevor Siemian during training camp. But he's really taken an active interest, Zach, in the 2019-2020 Broncos, whether it was mentoring Drew Lock. I mean, he spent some time with Lock, dude. Not only did they go to that game together, but just one glimpse into their relationship dynamic. He revealed, did Peyton Manning, 2 things. One, that he spent 90 minutes on the phone with Drew Lock at one point earlier in this offseason. And 2, he was the guy that broke the news that Drew Lock had his wisdom teeth taken out. Like that's how kind of close they become, I guess you could say. So, and then of course, coming in like this and really spending some time to help the rookies understand, young guys, you're always going to worry about how seriously they take studying and things like that. And Peyton Manning comes in and helps them understand why you got to put study habits and on all that on a pedestal. Preparation is key.
I said it at the top of the show. The Broncos are so fortunate to have Peyton Manning as a sounding board and Peyton Manning as a sage and Peyton Manning as an advice giver. No other NFL team has these services of, I think, you can debate the GOATs. I mean, he's definitely, if not the first GOAT, the second GOAT behind Tom Brady. I mean, to have that guy to be at your disposal, come in and take a natural, genuine interest in the team. Not just because he's forced to, he's getting paid to, it's a photo op. He wants to be out there. And the Broncos have that advantage. And it does mean something when it imparts that advice to the young, impressionable rookie players.
By the way, Jody, Sandy Clough is the man. OG. He is one of those guys that lives it, breathes it. I mean, this is a guy that knows, his command and grasp of even the most obscure statistics, hockey, baseball, football. Sandy Clough is a true OG and from, I don't want to call it necessarily a dying breed, but he's a great example to everybody in the media business, obviously, especially radio. Do I agree with every take that he has? No. But he is a guy that I absolutely respect to the utmost. But guys, we're out of time for tonight. Dale's saying real quick, after his retirement for Peyton, the road probably got a little wide as there were so many paths he could have taken. He's more settled now. Yeah, I would agree with that. But guys, we got to get out of here for tonight, as our awesome friend Buana mentions here. We're going to be back tomorrow. I say we in the royal sense, the royal we. Zach will be back with you tomorrow night. I will be handling some family business that has to get taken care of, but I'll be back before you know it. So Zach will hold down the fort. Same time as always tomorrow night. We'll have to see what the topics are about with what Thursday presents for everybody, but stay tuned for that. Go to huddleuppod.com, get your swag on. Keep the conversation going, you guys, at milehighhuddle.com. Articles, videos, community, discussion. Go there. Help us make that even bigger and better than it is now. And also, guys, help us get to 2K on Twitter with the Huddle Up Podcast. I mean, our listening audience is almost 10 times what our Twitter following is, which tells me, Zach, that not as many people are on Twitter as you might think in terms of, it's not as a commonly used social media as probably Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube are. And it is hyper politicized right now. I have a hard time even being on Twitter right now, to be honest with you. But, gang, It's very important to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with the show. So follow us over there. And don't forget to follow my partner, Zach Kelberman, at Kelberman NFL, myself, at Chad N. Jensen. And, Zach, I'm going to miss you tomorrow night, bro, but I got to take care of business, so have a great show and a great weekend.
You as well, and Chad, again, I told you this off camera, but my thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. Don't even worry about anything. We'll take care of it. You go handle you and take care of your wife.
All right, brother. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate all of you for joining us tonight and for the kind words and a mile-high salute to our Super Chat superstars. Also, we got to tip the cap to Buona Beast for keeping the stream rolling and Damien jumping in with the really late super.
The buzzer.
Very generous super. Goodness gracious. Thank you, Damien. He says, been busy with Voldemort work has slowed. Been busy with Voldemort work has been busy with Voldemort, the word that should go named. Okay, thank you. See, I translated my own that time.
Hey, I didn't get that one. Yeah, that was good.
Work has slowed some. I think we have to see what we have in these rookies. Well, again, that is a very, very generous super chat, Damien. We appreciate you, my brother. The rookie class, we're all looking forward to seeing them out on the grass. I think this is triple. This is a back-to-back-to-back that Elway has been able to bring home the cream of the crop, if you will. He's done really well, but this is the class that takes this rebuild from the still in process phase to over the top, I think, Zach.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this rookie class is you have instant impact contributors, projected instant impact contributors like Jerry Jeudy, like KJ Hamler, like Michael Lowe, like Albert O, like Lloyd Cushenberry, and you also have the Ajims and the Tyree Clevelands who can be future players. It was a good combination of building the present and building the future. But like we said, I mean, every rookie in the NFL has to prove their worth, and that's no different for the Broncos. So we're optimistic, but it has to be done on the field.
Again, thanks to Damon. We really do appreciate that, my brother. We got to get out of here, though. So we'll talk to you guys tomorrow night. Don't forget to be here 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. For Zach Kelberman, I'm Chad Jensen. We'll talk to you guys then.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.